Hi, Lol.
Hello.
Lol, hi. It's I'm getting used to seeing all these different people on Zoom at the moment. Can you hear?
Sound.
We have sound. We should have sound. Let me turn it up a bit. No.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear
I
me?
can't hear you.
Why is that, I wonder? I hate this. Fortunately, we can edit these bits. It's not on mute.
The mute button, David?
Yeah, and the mute is off.
Yeah.
It's all good on that front. I can't see anything else that would affect
No.
it.
How about now?
Can you hear me?
I've got you now.
Brilliant.
I've got you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
that's all right, David.
Okay.
We're there.
We're good to go. Fine.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry?
So is that some new work on the background there?
That's new work. Very new work.
Good.
Last
Okay.
I've been. The weather's been too good to be out of the garden recently. So I haven't been doing.
All right. Yeah. Well, you got enough to deal with there, so that's all right. Yeah.
So anyway, are you okay?
I'm ready to.
Right. I've been thinking about you because obviously the older ones are supposed to be more vulnerable. So
Yes.
But,
no, well, I've been very. I only ventured out yesterday because I got a click and collect shopping. But prior to that, we've had some good volunteers that have picked up for us. But I didn't want to put on them too much. But it was as safe as it could be. So yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm going to sort of count to three, and then we'll pretend we haven't spoken.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Are you okay? I mean, I'm going to sort of busk it a little bit. I mean, those questions that we sent, they're there. But if if things overlap a little bit, that's,
that's fine. I've got some notes just to look at and things, but it's in my head. So fire away. Yeah.
So fingers crossed we'll be okay. And it is recording, isn't it? It's definitely recording.
Is it? I don't know.
I did one with somebody else, and we got to the end of the interview.
Oh, really?
So I had to redo it.
Okay.
It was okay. It was better.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Hi, Lol.
Hi, David.
Good to see you.
How are you? Good.
I have seen you since Venice, of course.
Yes.
We worked on Time and Timelessness together, which was again seems
another blast,
like another world away because because of the current situation.
I know. We got it done in the nick of time, though, didn't we? Really?
No, we were very, very, very lucky.
So it was good. Yeah, good memories.
So in terms of Venice last year, this time last year, you did your wonderful video piece. How do you think? I mean, how does that feel now? How does it relate to the world we find ourselves in now?
I hadn't even until you sort of I hadn't given it much thought, but if we're on a post-rationalization basis here, I suppose. So I was thinking, I suppose you might say that the film Adam and Eve this time might sort of make us, I don't know, reflect on relationships, because it's the sort of the ultimate relationship, maybe in certain people's eyes or whatever. And the existential, really, because I think the brief I worked on was myth and logic, and just on that. So and also I'm just sort of actually thinking that in a way they were in isolation as well, weren't they? Really, they were the only two humans on the planet. And so it kind of references that a little bit. They were in the ultimate isolation because there wasn't anyone else around for a while. And then they were amongst, and just amongst nature. So I, and I thought, well, and then I started to think, well, the latter, obviously nature's getting quite a good rest without us around to mess around with it, isn't it, really? So as a sort of, a bit of post-rationalization, that's kind of where I think it.
Now, it's interesting how these things fit. And of course, with as you put it, that post-rationalization, you can sort of make anything fit anything, I guess.
Of course, exactly.
But I think it has been an interesting time to reflect on the world that we had been inhabiting, and
absolutely, we were just marching onwards, and
probably lost control a little bit, and
So exactly. So we're storytellers in all sorts of forms, and so it's just expanding the stories, isn't it? Really, and for me, Adam and Eve is a story.
Tell me, Lol, about your year since Venice.
As you know, I took part in Time and Timelessness, which, so as we said, that got done in the nick of time, really. And then we did together the clock tower piece for that.
Yes.
Done at breakneck speed there, and so on. And then I, having had to kind of figure out a simpler way of doing the tech, and particularly to run Adam and Eve and your piece and so on. So all that kept me pretty busy for the start of this year. If I'm sort of working backwards a bit, really, because that took us right up to the. I remember meeting you when we did our wash-up meeting, didn't we? Yeah. And I chose not to shake hands or hug. So, so that's where we were, really. Yeah. It's early days, but I started early. So then going back on that, I began work before that, towards the end of last year, with my designer friend Peter Higgins, who you met, obviously, came to Venice. And we've been working on this documentary, which is principally, I suppose, about sort of digital installation for museums and experiences, which is what we've done together from a commercial practice. So we've been working on that, and actually that's finished now. So we're beginning to sort of gradually disseminate that. So that's been quite a project, and then developed from that. Another mutual designer friend has joined us, and we've been doing some Zoom meetings to develop that film, if you like, into a possible virtual exhibition and then maybe a real exhibition someday. So
it's really interesting. I mean, that you have for some years now been working in a kind of virtual world. Virtual installations. I mean, they're installations; they're real, of course.
They are, but they're virtual. We call everything on screen virtual now.
Virtual. So and we now live in this virtual world.
Absolutely. No, it's a familiar territory for me. Yeah, absolutely, and the people I've worked with. So it's just an adaptation, and you obviously you start thinking, what can you do? And so we had this documentary underway. And then we're having weekly Zoom meetings, and we're developing into a proper kind of self-brief sort of scheme, if you like, really, and it's going in all sorts of directions. So it's it's been really interesting. And prior to and after Venice, I went to, so working back a bit further, I went to the Ars Electronica Festival, and then I then did a project with the RCA, a 3-day project with RCA students about sort of augmenting museums, and then now right now also alongside I'm sort of installing Adam and Eve virtually into a very well-known space.
Okay.
So there'll be more of that.
Okay. Well, watch this space. No, we'll keep it.
Exactly. Watch this virtual space.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
It's not. I don't know. Look back and think there's much been done, but then you do, and you think, well, it all takes quite a bit of time, really.
Yeah, no, sure. What about what about your teaching at the Royal College? Are you still? I mean, because obviously they're not there anymore. So
no. Well, that was just. I mean, my involvement there is very small and very piecemeal, but I have then the particular course, because it's a 15-month, they actually graduated in February. So that I went to as you know, it's right in slap in parallel to Time and Timelessness. But so there's some graduates that I've been keeping in touch with. They've dispersed back around the world a bit because it's got very international, and sort of helping them along and sending them some links to things. And I do a kind of, because I'm not a social media. So I do my own version where I kind of see things and punch it out to a set group of people. Sometimes it's only the course, or sometimes it goes to 100 people. so yeah, that's sort of just there really. But it's they seem to that the course seems to be. There was one who's on the course I had a Zoom with the other day, and he seems very happy with, he's fine, not happy I suppose, but fine with how it's all working.
Incredible, this new word, Zoom. To Zoom, it's a new part of the lexicon, which we didn't know about 3 months ago.
Absolutely, we're all we've all. Yeah, the others don't get a look. I mean, no one says Skype anymore. It's just Zoom, isn't it? It's just been a word.
It's gone.
So anyway, they're very
back, Lol. Obviously these conversations that we're having at the moment with the Alive in the Universe artists, really interesting. And just going backwards and thinking about this idea of the virtual and your piece that you did with Adam and Eve. I remember being there with you when you filmed the work in the Palazzo originally back in 2018.
Yeah, you were there. Yeah. Yes.
That was. It was very. It was kind of very physical. It was cold. It was a dark space. We had these two unclothed, figures walking in the space. We had some lights.
Yeah. We'd only met half an hour before,
walking through the space, and then it suddenly becomes, through the wonders of the camera and editing and projection, this virtual thing. I mean, as a virtual thing, it I think probably became more powerful somehow. And I wonder what you think about the power of the virtual. Can we,
Well, I mean, cinema has always been virtual, isn't it? This is the thing. This was saying earlier is that really now we are talking about the screen as virtual. Almost anything like this is virtual, as you say. So I've never really always sort of thought in terms, not use that terminology, but it's a space we go into, isn't it? The screen, and so I it's definitely, the piece only works at its best to be with it. That's for sure. I am doing this, as I said earlier, sort of virtually installing it, but that's just for my own probably amusement really, rather than anything else. So really, it's there's still that for me. I'm a lover of the big screen in all sorts of forms if it's done well and right. And so it can't, the virtual, it just for me can't replace the real. But it's another type of thing, and obviously in this time it's being accelerated, isn't it? It's like anything. It's like people. My mum tells me stories after the Second World War, and I think about it and how things, it's tragic, and it's tragic now, but it does, these things do accelerate things, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very accelerated platform, really, in terms of that. So
what about the format of you talked about the big screen. You've always been interested in the big screen cinema, and I guess the small screen, which is television, but they're all landscape in format. And we watch a lot of news programs at the moment where there's somebody's held their phone
portrait.
They have these kind of funny blurry bits on the sides.
Yeah.
I mean, is there something? Why is this? Why are we all horizontal? What?
Well, I mean, that's basic because of our eyes. Obviously, it's more a kind of biological thing, technical.
But then as soon as we get a camera or a phone, we do that. Not
because it started. Yeah, it started as a phone. I mean, it's not anymore. It's not. The least it is a phone because of how else it's used. And but there's an interesting new platform that was launched in the middle of this called Quibi. Quibi, which is short for Quick Bites.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a new film format that's like a Netflix, and it does, which is interesting. It only puts things out in 10-minute installments. Yeah. But it also allows you just to turn the camera portrait or landscape, and it just crops accordingly. It doesn't crop. Okay. You just get a portrait view of what you're seeing as a landscape.
I see.
And so nothing turns. Only the phone turns. Yeah. But you can watch the movie they put out. Someone in a car, you can choose to either watch the driver and the passenger, or just maybe watch the driver. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
I haven't subscribed, but it's a proper format, and they're obviously, and they are encouraging some big names to be in the productions. So it's changing, yeah, and that's quite interesting. And I've always used portrait screens in my museum work and so on.
Yeah.
And as you know, the piece I did for Landscape and Light was a portrait on a tablet. So I'm, and also coming from a sort of photography background, I've always appreciated the portrait as well as the landscape. So I'm not adverse to making movies in a portrait format, that's for sure. So I'm excited about the changes, really.
So do you think that work you did in the Palazzo, do you think it has had a sort of bearing on your work and the way your work might progress, in the future?
Yes. Well, I think it certainly has sort of moved the work, forward in the sense that I did. I found myself doing a sort of type of work that I've sort of always wanted to do, and it's all about opportunities and so on. Obviously, you can be motivated to do these things anyway. But I've always worked well to a kind of brief, but in this sense, it was in a fine art context.
Yeah.
And so it certainly, I mean, I would say it ranks very highly in the best of works I've done, from my personal point of view.
Maybe.
And it really, and I enjoyed the whole kind of process of it. And it was a very, I love movies and I love the intricacies of movie making, but I'm not someone to choose to get bogged down in those intricacies too much. Intricacies too much, if you see what I mean. So I like that kind of immediacy. Yeah. And also extended my interests in very much to do with filming and then representing the film in the same space, a kind of site specificness, if you like, in that way. So yeah, sorry.
I was going to say you've sort of worked with site specific and placing the thing in the place before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a thing I'm finding. I enjoy in that way. There's just that sort of. I suppose it's like there's been a happening there. It's a bit sort of it happened in there, and then when you go in there and those characters aren't really there, but you are putting them back in there. In that sense.
Now, are you working on any things at the moment, or are you somebody who? A lot of people like working to kind of for a reason, a purpose, a brief, whatever it's. However you.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there's been a documentary, because that's the thing. I'm so kind of, I don't know what the term is. I suppose there's a certain eclecticness to my way I work, because having worked with a practice and commercially and coming from a fine art background and doing more of that again. So I switch around. So the documentary has been quite kind of consuming. It's been a lot working through archive and even digitizing VHS and DV tapes and things. So because it goes back about 20 years. So it's quite interesting. And so there's been quite a lot of process involved, and then editing. It's the longest film I've ever made or edited, so there's been that, and then there was an exhibition coming up in July, and I started to work up something for that in a not that dissimilar vein to Venice in terms of content and so on, but that's obviously gone into lockdown limbo. And there was also bubbling a follow-up to Adam and Eve, a shoot that I was organising with Nick, who you know well now. But so it's kind of it's sort of working, having some things in the plan and then working on ideas and so on. It's an amazing thinking time now. It's and I found myself doing some writing on past works. I found myself sort of starting to do it and just sort of send it out. So there's a reflection time as well.
There's definitely a time for reflection. That's for sure. I was going to ask. I think you probably answered the question now, but I was going to ask you how this has affected your plans for the for the past few month or so. And
that's sort of the kind of where where things are at. But yeah, as I say, whatever happens, it doesn't, as you well know, in the creative world, you never stop thinking, do you? You're always all the time, and so thinking is work, you know. You know, in that sense. I don't agree that everything has to be always sort of, as an artist or a maker, that you have to manifest everything, but you do some of it.
No, not at all. No, I think I spend probably 90% of my time looking out the window.
Yeah.
He says, "Are you busy?" I said, "Yeah, I'm working."
Yeah, well, absolutely. You know, well, you know, as you know, my mum's here, and if I go quiet, she says, "Are you all right?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm thinking." Really, it's all going on all the time, and I'm obviously, I'm even spending more time online, and so I'm searching things out or looking for something and then seeing something else. I mean, at this time, I mean, my God, if there's any savior at this time for people's sanity, is obviously the internet, you know, isn't it? As we're doing now. I mean,
and it's incredible how it's holding up, really, given the amount of extra, well, I imagine extra sort of burden.
Totally, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, it really is, and hats off to, you know, I think when they say about key workers, I haven't heard anyone talking about the people that are keeping the power stations running and the water running and the internet running and everything. You know, they're all having to be maintained. So, you know, hats off to those people as well. I mean, they are absolutely, you know, there's the obvious, but now, you know, with NHS and everything, which is amazing. But, you know.
No, in terms of, you know, we've been asking the same sort of set of questions to really. Each one is applied differently, but as a practitioner, do you go somewhere to work, or do you have a study, or do you sit down?
I mean, we're in there now. I'm in my home studio. Sort of, I've got my setup in my home studio, which is which, you know, I'm extremely fortunate to have, but it's it's a good space, and I don't need a lot of space these days. You know, I never, you know, it's always got less and less. And I'm fortunate I've got a nice manageable little garden out the back, you know, that I can open doors onto. So it's I'm in a pretty good situation, really. So
in some ways, I mean, some things haven't changed really. You're doing what you normally do.
No, not in that sense. I mean, obviously, well, as you know, I was always jaunting to London a lot. So, you know, that's part of it. So obviously that's not happening. But other than that, really, work these days has always gone ultimately back, you know, back at the base here, really. You know. So in a way, that's.
Are there positives you think that have come out of this on a personal level? I mean, well, you know, work personal level.
Well, as I said, you know, there's been, you know, it's a big thinking time. And you know, and you know, looking back at things and you know, reflecting on, you know, it's an opportunity to think about your development more, and you know, where things started. And I even found my thesis from my first thesis from degree.
Wow.
And that was quite interesting. Yeah. You know, I look at the student theses these days that are just PhDs compared to what we used to do. I mean, they're all relevant for the time, but it was, you know, it was about Warhol and because I was a printmaker those days and so on. So it was quite interesting, and there were some photographs I took. So so there's a sort of, I suppose, you know, I know it's a positive, but there's that sort of side of things, and but you know, it's not so bad, you know, for me, you know, I enjoy people's company, but I equally am okay with my own, you know, really. So I don't know. Positives are, I think it's an awful price to pay, obviously, what's going on in many ways, but it's, I think it's equally, it's not a bad thing that the nature has pressed the pause button on us.
Really. Exactly.
You know, I think that's a big thing that's coming out of it, because things were just going so incredibly fast, and I don't know whether it will sustain or whether, but that's what I'm thinking, is that it feels like people needed to stop, you know, really.
I think you're probably
you know, but it's a massively high price to pay.
It's a big price, and it's, I mean, the time will tell whether we do speed up again. I mean, the problem is, you know, technology drives us, and the technologies are still there. And
I mean, this whole thing of the new normal, and then there'll be a different normal after that. But one wonders. I don't know. But you know, it's yeah, it's incredible, you know, really. So, but I'm, you know, I've got nothing to be negative about in a sense, in terms of, but I don't know what the real positives would be, really. You know, I'm in a, you say, I'm in a much more fortunate situation than lots of people, you know, really, which I appreciate. So
good. So, Lol, you know, I'm so slightly mindful of the time because soon running out on us.
Okay.
Just one last question, and that is, you know, take it how you want it, and that is, after this, what is the thing which, you know, what's the big thing you kind of can't do now that you might be able to do weeks, months?
Well, I'm not convinced there'll be an actual point when we realise that we're unlocked. It would just be such a gradual process that it would just be, it's a bit like probably recovering from something. You don't really realise the point when you're really recovering or recovered, you know. So, but I haven't got anything, there's nothing spectacular in my mind, but you know, the thing I most enjoy, which is very human, is to go out to dinner or drink with friends and certainly usually talking creativity, which I always did. And I would just, you know, relish when that can happen normally, but not having to sit 2 or 3 chairs away from somebody, you know, and so on. And
I mean, there's been a lot of talk about VE Day, which is coming up in online, isn't it? And you know, that was an absolute, you know, somebody signed a document and hey, we're all
okay.
And as you say, this is not going to be like this.
No, there won't be that definitive moment, you know, victory over Virus Day. That won't really happen. And but yeah, and I just miss my jaunts to London and sitting in a real cinema, and you know, and you know, and so on. So I think I'll just enjoy doing those basics again. You know, it's a kind of, you know, it's sort of more existential, I suppose, and rather than anything, you know, specifically in mind, you know, because it'd be hard to say, you can't, as you say, you can't just suddenly do a VA. Everyone can't just go out in the streets and start hugging each other on a particular time.
maybe that's the answer to it all.
So, you know, so so you know, it's nothing sort of exciting. It's just just hopefully, you know, some nice basics back again, you know, really. So
great. Okay, Lol, that's wonderful.
Okay.
And thank you so much for talking to us.
No, I enjoyed it.
It's all alive in this universe.
I haven't seen you for a while, so it's been enjoyable as well. And so when we'll meet again at some point.
On a sunny day, whatever Vera said.
Well, she's still going. What, she's 101? Is 100? Yeah, she's 101, I think. Something like that.
Wow.
Incredible.
Cool.
So,
okay, on that lovely note, I'll say here's to Vera, here's to you, Lol.
And to you, David.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.